Hey, hello, how are you? So today's topic is repurchase agreements and reverse repurchase agreements, or in general we call it as repo agreements and reverse repo agreements. So before proceeding, just like to tell that if you haven't yet subscribed my channel, please do subscribe it and press the bell icon so that whenever new video is uploaded, you get a first information on that. And at the end of the video, if you like the video, please do like it. Now let's move on to the explanation of repo and reverse repo. So what is a repo? So repo is an agreement between two parties in which one is a seller and another is a buyer. And the purpose of this agreement is to just arrange money for a small period of time in a quick, for which the seller actually sells securities, which are generally fixed income securities like bonds, and with an agreement that he is selling these securities as a price, and after a few days, could be a overnight or after a week or so, he will buy back those securities from the buyer at a price which is higher than the price at which he is selling it. Okay, so just to say that there is a seller who sells the security and gets into an agreement that he will buy those securities back at a specified time and at a fixed price. So this is the repo agreement or a repo transaction. Since we have seen that the seller is selling the securities at a price, and when buy back those securities, he is paying more than the price that he has actually sold those securities. So in this way, there is a difference between the selling and buying price, right? So the difference between selling and buying price is actually interest part, right? So what happens if the seller is selling the securities at say $1 million and then buying it back at say $1.20 million? So that means 0.20 million is the interest which he is actually paying. So this interest is an expense for the seller and an income for the buyer. So let's understand this repo and reverse repo with an example. Now if we see seller uh, sorry yep. So seller, who is also known as borrower because he is getting the money or borrowing the money, and buyer, who is also termed as or known as lender. So in this example, what we are doing, there is a transaction which is getting executed in which the seller is selling bonds for 10 million INR with an agreement that he will repurchase these bonds at 10.50 million INR. So it means that the seller, that is the first person who is borrowing the money, he is willing to again purchase it at 0.50 million extra money. So this 0.50 million is termed as interest, right? So let's see how this transaction happens. So in the first, the seller approaches the buyer that I need some money, in this case say 10 million INR. On 15th of May, he approached the buyer that I need 10 million INR. So what I can do, I will give you bonds which is valuing say 12 million, because generally what happens, this buyer generally takes the security value more than the amount that he is lending. So say what happens, the seller with this agreement that he is giving bonds to the buyer valuing 12 million, but for that he will be borrowing 10 million rupees with an agreement that on 17th of May he will again purchase those securities from the buyer by paying 10.50 million. Right. So now what happens? So on 15th May, seller gets the money and he transfers the bonds to the buyer, and the title of the bonds is also transferred to the buyer, so that in case if on the fixed date this seller is not able to buy back the bonds, then to get the money the buyer will sell the bonds, right, so that he can get his money by selling those bonds. So in this way the risk is mitigated. So it is the transaction that happened on 15th of May. Then on 17th of May, what will happen? The seller will approach the buyer again, and then he will pay some amount to the buyer, which is equal to 10 million plus this 0.5 million as well, which is the interest part. So in total he will be paying 10 plus 0.5, which is equal to 10.5 million. So this 10.5 million the buyer will receive, and he will sell these bonds back to the original seller. Right. So in this way the seller was able to finance, okay, so the seller was able to get a finance of 10 million rupees in a quick, which is a benefit for him because he needed that money. And from buyer's perspective, within 2 days he get an interest of 0.50 million. So both the parties have got their purpose fulfilled. So this is the way in which the repo transactions happen. And what is reverse repo? The same transaction, when it is seen from the viewpoint of buyer, it is termed as reverse repo agreement. Right. Okay, so this is a quick on the repo and reverse repo agreements. I hope you understand it. In case not, you have any doubts, queries, just email me or put in the comments. Thank you very much.